Welcome to this explainer. Grab your hard hats, because today we are stepping straight into the blueprint room. I'll be your chief architect, and we are going to look at the foundational grid for the AS level Afrikaans Language 8679 examination. Our core objective for this session is highly practical. I am going to teach you exactly how to decode command words so you can lay down an unshakable thesis foundation. We are talking about erecting load-bearing analytical arguments and constructing structural sentence connections that will survive the absolute most rigorous Cambridge examiner's stress testing. Over the next few minutes, we're going to push your structural integrity all the way to 100%. So let's get out the blueprints.
Here is our exact construction agenda for today's site visit. First, we'll cover the blueprint stakes. Second, cognitive foundations. Third, procedural scaffolding. Fourth, load-bearing analysis. Fifth, building code violations. And finally, we'll finish up with the rebar stress test.
Section 1. The Blueprint Stakes. Why Command Words Matter.
We are starting our site inspection right here, because this is where most projects fail before they even get off the ground. Misinterpreting a command word in your exam prompt is exactly like pouring your structural concrete directly onto loose sand. A command word like beschrijf, which means describe, requires an entirely different architectural framework than ontleed, which means analyze. Now, what's truly striking about this is that these command words account for a massive 15% of your total marks in Paper 2. That 15% is entirely dictated by how accurately you decode the directive before you write a single word of your Afrikaans essay. If the examiner asks for a steel framework and you give them a wooden shed, the entire structure comes down, no matter how nicely you painted the wood.
Let's move on to Section 2. Cognitive foundations, the 3 pillars.
Let's look at the exact assessment objectives enforced by Cambridge examiners. To explain this, I want you to imagine 2 junior builders on our site. Let's call them Alex and Sam. Cambridge requires 3 specific cognitive pillars: knowledge and understanding, analysis, and evaluation. Now, Alex absolutely loves stacking up heavy bricks of knowledge and understanding. He sits there memorizing every single detail of an Afrikaans text. But you know what his fatal flaw is? He never actually checks if his analysis frame can support all that raw weight. He just keeps piling on facts. Then you have Sam. Sam is the opposite. Sam wants to jump straight to evaluation. Sam loves putting up shiny glass panels and decorative features using massive, impressive Afrikaans vocabulary, but entirely misses cementing the foundational understanding of the core text first. What happens? Both of their structures fail the inspection. Successful candidates must demonstrate competence across all 3 of these domains simultaneously.
The crucial point you have to understand here is that the assessment framework prioritizes deep, load-bearing analytical depth over superficial, descriptive breadth. Think about it like a real skyscraper. The examiners don't really care how wide your building is if the foundation only goes down 2 inches. The syllabus explicitly states that top-performing students exhibit connected, conceptual understanding that is transferable to entirely unfamiliar contexts. This means you aren't just reciting what you memorized from a textbook, you are taking the actual engineering principles of the language you've learned and applying them to a brand new structural challenge on exam day.
Section 3. Procedural Scaffolding. Constructing the paragraph.
Cambridge actually awards marks for the construction process itself, so you must secure this specific 6-step procedural framework. We call this hitting the method mark strategy. First, you deconstruct the question to isolate the command's stress points. Second, extract the relevant data from the text. Third, select your analytical framework. Fourth, execute your analysis with absolute clarity. Fifth, verify your results against the prompt. And sixth, present it correctly. Going back to our builders, if Sam tries to skip steps 2 and 3 and just jumps straight to presentation because he wants it to look pretty, the structural integrity of the essay drops instantly. You cannot fake the method. And speaking of presentation, never forget that the flow of information follows strict construction conventions. If you ignore them, your building fails the aesthetic inspection. It's not enough to just find a great quote. You must apply proper headings, use the correct terminology, rely on appropriate formats, and provide clear annotation. If you hand in an exam blueprint that looks like a chaotic, rushed sketch on a napkin, the chief examiner is not going to approve the build no matter how clever your underlying Afrikaans argument might be. The presentation is the finishing material of your high-rise.
Section 4. Load-bearing analysis. Erecting the arguments. Now we reach the critical ironwork phase, where we rivet your extracted data directly to your evaluation. I was listening in on Alex and Sam at the drafting board earlier, and they were having a massive debate. Alex was arguing, hey, We just need to fill this whole paragraph with terminology definitions. That's a solid cement block. It'll show the examiner we know the text. But Sam shook his head. No way, Alex. If we just build a solid block of description, there's no hollow space for a dynamic counterargument. Without that space, the structure has zero flexibility to hit the higher order objectives. And this brilliantly illustrates the difference between a weak descriptive cement block and a highly flexible, top-band evaluative structure. Sam is right. Higher order command words demand an evaluation of alternatives and justified recommendations. If you stay on the descriptive level, your framing is weak, and your essay collapses instantly under the weight of the mark scheme criteria.
So how do we build that load-bearing argument? Well, when performing comparative analysis, you must secure your framework with both similarities and differences. To prevent a structural collapse, you identify the differences, and you literally weld them together using comparative connectives, like using on the onderkant to contrast points in Afrikaans. Every single comparison you make must be supported with hard evidence riveted from the text, and it must culminate in drawing relative conclusions about their importance.
Whoa, okay, site inspection pause. Stop the cranes. Before we pour this final layer of text concrete, I need to make sure your construction line is fully reinforced. I want you to subscribe to Acing the Exams. That's at Acing the Exams right now. Turn on all those notifications to receive our weekly structural grade upgrades. Whether you are building an IGCSE foundation or setting up a massive AS-level skyscraper, this channel is your primary grid. Hear that metallic lock sound? Perfect. That's your analytical structure locking firmly into place. Let's get back to the blueprint room.
Section 5. Building Code Violations, Examiner Alerts.
Let's look at some failed safety audits taken directly from the Cambridge Principal Examiner reports so we can see why student structures typically fall apart. Here is a massive site safety warning. Candidates consistently confuse key terminology. Imagine grabbing a piece of wood, calling it a steel beam, and then trying to calculate its load-bearing capacity based on that massive error. Disastrous, right? So we have to upgrade the cement. To fix this, you use the Peel methodology. Point, evidence, evaluation, link. You define your point clearly, you rivet it down with your Afrikaans textual evidence, you evaluate the strength of that evidence, and then you physically link it right back to your core thesis column.
But beyond just terminology, examiners reported 3 major, fatal mistakes that students make when handling command words in this specific exam. These are the critical errors that will cause the examiner to tape off your essay like a condemned building.
Let's go through them. First, confusing cause and effect. Honestly, this is like putting the roof on before you've even poured the foundation. It completely defies logic and gravity. Second, forgetting format and presentation. This means you built the beautiful structural frame, but you forgot to install the doors and the windows. It's totally uninhabitable. And third, answers that are not specific to the given context. This means you have built a beautiful, airy beach house right in the middle of a freezing, snowy mountain peak. It fails its environmental context completely. If you do any of these 3 things, your examiner will instantly reject the blueprint.
Section 6. The Rebar Stress Test, Interactive Audit.
Now it is time for a live site safety audit to see if you can extract the high-yielding metrics under pressure. But first, I want you to lock this memory hack into your tool belt so you can instantly recall these architectural concepts on exam day. It's called the visual story method. When you see a complex Afrikaans command word like evaluate, don't just try to memorize the dictionary definition. I want you to imagine a pair of heavy metal scales weighing 2 different steel beams. If the command word is describe, picture a camera taking a quick surface-level photo of the site. Encoding these concepts with mental imagery ensures your cognitive foundations never, ever crack when the exam timer starts ticking.
So here is your challenge. I want you to look at your very next past paper and ask yourself a critical question. Does my evidence beam successfully latch onto my main thesis column? Imagine a 60-second visual countdown timer right in front of you. Under that pressure, apply the blueprint matrix. Can you deconstruct the prompt, break it into logical steps, solve it systematically, check your load-bearing capacity, and make a justified evaluation before time runs out? That is the exact speed and accuracy the Cambridge Assessment objectives demand from a master architect.
Let's wrap up this site visit. Remember our 3 key takeaways for your construction blueprint today. First, you have to deeply understand the cognitive domains: knowledge, analysis, and evaluation. Don't be an Alex and don't be a Sam. You have to balance the structural load. Second, rigorously use the procedural framework of deconstructing, solving, and presenting. And third, never ever ignore the examiner code violations regarding terminology, formatting, and context. If you commit to the structural methodology, practice your past papers, and keep returning to the blueprint room, your framework is going to hit 100% potential every single time.
Which leaves me with one final question for you before we lock up the site today. Will your thesis foundation actually survive the final rigorous examiner's stress test? I challenge you to look at your latest essay draft right now and run it through everything we've talked about. Will it hold up or will it collapse? Keep laying those unshakable foundations, constantly checking your command words against your building codes, and I'll see you in the next masterclass to help you secure that top band grade. Keep building.